Hi, it's Josh from BrightTALK. I'm here at Infosecurity Europe with Robert Arandjelovic from Blue Coat. Robert, thank you for joining us.
Pleasure.
Should we start with the financial world?
Yeah,
we keep seeing these big banks have breaches, have hacks. Why do you think they're such prime targets, and what do you think they could be doing to better protect themselves?
The payload, it can be attained from any kind of data breach or any kind of security theft can result in an immediate payday. I think banks have to kind of look towards what they've done in other fields to see what they need to do on the cyberspace. There's also a lot of places actions in place that they take to stop people from faking a credit card number. But at the same time, there's a fraud division out there so that when a credit card number is lost or a wallet's stolen and somebody's trying to use someone's credit card information online, for instance, there's an entire fraud division that's out there to identify when that's happening as soon as possible and to minimize the damage and cut it out after it's happened. So that's kind of the model they need to take in the cybersecurity world. But the key is to accept the fact that every once in a while there's going to be a bad click, there's going to be a compromise somewhere along the line. And so the key is to have the capabilities in place to find out what happened before that breach happened, what's happening during and after, so that you can minimize the impact. Find it quickly and mitigate the impact so that the risk and the ultimate damage of the actual cyber breach is minimized and potentially negligible.
Sure. And where are you seeing, from Blue Coat's perspective, the key kind of threat actors? Where are they coming from? Who are they?
We see a lot of insider effects. We're seeing a lot more rise in state-level cybercrime. The criminal organizations are always going to be there when there's a dollar to be made, or a euro, or a pound. And so those are always going to be at play. But what I'm seeing, a very interesting thing, is the community. We're almost seeing, we have the security community and the vendor community on the good guys' side, but at the same time, those guys are teaming up as well. And so you're seeing stories where threat actors, state threat actors, are enlisting cyber criminal organizations, or they're actually finding people. Cyber criminal organizations might find somebody they know or have on the inside, or someone they can buy on the inside. And so you're seeing this constant movement where they're collaborating together, both in terms of actual carrying out of cyber crimes, but also in terms of sharing intelligence. They'll all share threats with one another. So the reality is, to me, the biggest threat is the increased collaboration and therefore the increased evolution of those threat actors across the board.
What do you think can be done? You've touched on the insider threat there. Yes. What do you think the best way to handle that particular vulnerability is?
You're dealing with situations that are kind of foreign to the old security idea. So many security perimeter models are based on the idea if this person has the right credentials to come in, he's legit and therefore he can do what he wants. So much is based on then, therefore, the only thing we're going to worry about blocking is someone who doesn't have the right credentials. But what do you do in the case of an insider where he's got the keys? He's supposed to be there. It just happens to be that he's using the data or the access that he has in an improper way, either intentionally or unintentionally because he's been infected. So what companies don't tend to do as much of and enough of, and again, if I use the real world analogy of having internal camera systems or whatever may be the case, is having the capability to understand what's happening on the network. Can you perform analytics to see if there's certain behaviors that are very abnormal? Are there, for instance, malicious uploads or really strange suspicious uploads happening to China at 4 o'clock in the morning? Being able to have intelligence security that can pick up on that is probably the best way to do that. And that, obviously, there's a process element there of making sure that things are locked down from who can access data, and then obviously having the tools in place to spot anomalies.
Do you think that's also applicable to Joe Blogg's industry, who's set up a network in his home and starting to get more and more devices connected to that network? Are the vulnerabilities the same as they would be with a big financial house, as we've covered already?
The smaller you get, the less likely someone's going to have a vested interest in spending the time and money and effort on customizing something to attack you. But in general, we're seeing, again, when I mentioned that community and that threat sharing aspect that is happening in the threat community, you're getting a lot more cookie cutter type of attacks where you can just roll them out to people. And so with very little effort, you get automation of these attacks, and so you can get them out there. So in many cases, you do see sort of a recycling of what was once original malware getting used on individuals or small institutions as well. So to a large extent, yes.
And can you also look at it at the kind of national level? I mean, there's a lot of targeting for critical infrastructure, or the kind of key aspects that keep the country together. What do you think those aspects, those industries are doing to better protect themselves?
The upcoming Network and Information Security Directive, the NIS directive, for instance, is going to have a very specific language in it mandating even further efforts to be taken from those types of critical infrastructure institutions. But at the same time, there is a big philosophy shift. The problem that a lot of those have, especially when you look at kind of the heavy industry or the heavy infrastructure institutions, is they've always depended on what's referred to as the air gap. This idea that our network is completely offline, there is nothing taking it out, we're running on proprietary networks, and therefore we don't have to worry about these inbound threats and cyber attacks like other institutions do. What's happened though, with things like the Internet of Things, with things like just basically internet-ready services in general and leveraging supply chains across the world, is you are getting that connectivity. And all of a sudden, you're externalizing risk to the point where you're putting things out there, and now an environment that never had to worry about security or heavy cybersecurity practices like you would see in other industries, because of that air gap, has lost that air gap because now they're externalized. Yeah. And so in a lot of cases, you get a situation where their security postures are 10 or 20 years old, and they're vulnerable to attacks and attack methodologies that are 10 or 20 years old. So there's a lot of catch-up that has to happen.
Yeah. And just to end on a kind of positive, Rob, what are you seeing in the world of InfoSec that's kind of really exciting at the moment?
People are taking a much more strategic approach. They're looking at broader issues. The issues themselves are rolling right up to the board level, and so we're seeing a lot more validation of people moving in this direction. And so companies are looking to embrace things, and we're seeing that movement away from security being the department of no. And now it's all about how do we make this safe?
You need to find a balance, don't you?
Totally, absolutely.
Right. Thank you very much for joining us.
It's a pleasure, thank you.
We're here at Infosecurity all week, so stay on BrightTALK for more cybersecurity insights.